Hello and welcome. This is Joe Holbrook, owner of Cloudburst Corp. out of Jacksonville, Florida. I'm looking forward to spending the next 20 to 35 or so minutes with you, not too much longer than that. Trying to keep these modules short because of the topics and trying to make sure that you get the max out of these sessions as well. So the first area that I'd like to cover before you dive in and you take the exam, please do go back. And I'm going to place the link in my YouTube channel slash video description. And make sure you do watch the certification review module, or actually session 1 would be the term. And that's going to go through the test areas. This module here is really meant to cover virtual networking at a higher level to prepare you for the test, to make sure that you understand areas around virtual networking. This is the first out of 12 different modules that I have planned, some of which will be posted right after this. Some may take me another week or two to finish. But again, I want everyone that does take the cloud platform cloud architect exam to be successful, and that's why I'm spending the time to help those that are looking forward to taking the exam. So the first area that I'd like to cover would be around Google's network. Now, Google's core network, they have 3 key elements to that. The first element is the core data centers. This is where the cloud equipment is, the hardware, the software, the folks managing the cloud platform. That's the core data center. Then you have edge points of presence. These are basically areas connected to major cities, essentially, to connect directly to the internet. And when you do connect to a point of presence, usually these are going to be major providers that are going to have basically a direct connect to Google, to the cloud platform. And then you also have the edge caching and service nodes. And these are going to be typically located in smaller cities. And there's hundreds of those all over the world as well. Now, the Google Cloud Platform, they have 8 regions, 23 zones, over 100 points of presence, as well as a well-provisioned global network with thousands of miles of fiber optic cable. Now, before we cover network objects, let me go over to my browser. I want to show you, and I'll have the link for this site as well. I do want to make sure that you do go over to the Google Cloud Platform Cloud Locations before you take the test as well. You may see a question on that like I did. If you notice here that you have cloud locations, the link is here. I'm going to post this in the YouTube video description so that you can go to that directly. Now you'll notice that there's different regions and zones. You'll see Northern Virginia, South Carolina, California, Oregon, London, Finland, etc. Some of these are in use, some are actually planned in the works. And then I also did want to touch basically the 3 types of services, the way you deploy them. Now, generally you want to, and we're going to talk about this, but I wanted to just jump ahead just briefly. You have zonal, regional, and multi-regional. And a lot of this is going to come down to the type of resource and what are the resources you're going to be using. Do you need HA? Do you need failover? What about other capabilities like load balancing, etc. So we'll talk about how all of these fall in. So if you see here, You could select multi-regional, and it'll show you the different regions on how to scale. Regional would be here, and then you could see zonal. Again, a lot of this is based on the type of resource. So do take a look at this, and I do like how they have this zonal coverage. It tells you what services, what products are available where. So one of the challenges with designing a cloud, whether it's Amazon or Microsoft Azure or Rackspace or whoever you're going to use, not every product, not every solution, every service, whatever you want to call the solution that you're going to use. I'll just call it a solution. I like to call it a solution. Why, I don't know. That's just my history as a VAR, a vendor integrator. I always call everything a solution. However, to be correct, call it a product. That's what Google's going to call it. So you have Cloud Data Flow, Cloud Data Proc, and you could see that these services are located in different geos and zones. So you could see that here, US Central Container Registry. These are only located in two of the data centers, and you can see that Container Engine, however, has somewhat more choices, and so on and so on. And you could see so on and so on. If you scale down to the different coverage, you could see that, like cloud storage, it shows you the locations here, and this is under regional coverage. And then what about multi-regional? Now, multi-regional, again, is going to be something that typically a multinational organization is going to be very concerned with. You're going to want to be able to use resources around specific geos and regions. And so we'll talk more about the coverage and how that all works. But again, I just wanted to make sure you were familiar with this website before we continued on. Okay, so let's talk about virtual network objects. Now, an object is essentially anything in the Google Cloud that you can essentially create and manage. These are resources, essentially. And there's more than 9, but again, we're going to talk about 9 for the test for right now. So projects. So let's talk about what a project is here coming up. And then also, too, virtual machines, firewalls, and routes. We're going to cover those as well. Now, there's some other areas I'm going to cover in a separate module because they're much more advanced and they're going to take a little bit more time than what we could do in this one session. For example, VPNs, DNS, load balancing, those are very complex subjects in any cloud in a lot of cases, and every organization is going to have a different requirement, different setup. So, for example, what about if you need a direct connect? That's an Amazon term. What about if you need to, set up a DNS services or some kind of load balancing between regions? So these are areas that take a little bit more time than what we could give in this one. And it's important before we cover these as well to, of course, know what some of these are. So let's talk about a project. So now Google, they like to use a project. Now a project is, again, very similar to what Amazon would call an organization. Now, the reality is that Amazon and Google really don't have a comparable until recently. But the goal of this is to get you familiar with how Google does stuff, not AWS. But for most of us that are familiar with AWS, it's easy to correlate a specific term to maybe what we're familiar with. So that's why I'm spending a few minutes on that as well. Now, when we talk about a project, this is important, especially from a logistical standpoint, that you think about this in the sense that this is how you want to design your cloud. This is the first step. So for example, it's going to be very common that you're going to have production and test instances, let's say. So in Amazon, typically when you create an account with Amazon, there wasn't an easy way to distinguish between virtual machines and resources and everything, as well as other solutions and services. You had to do a lot of work to be able to get the billing to be granular. With Google, this is much easier. So, for example, if you want to go into Google right now and create a project, I'm going to go to the console here shortly and walk you through some of this. But it's important to understand that when you create a project, you want it to be unique. And so, again, the project needs to be unique. And of course, you want the project to be, something that you're going to understand. So this is going to be the project name. So, for example, call it, production database services, something that you could remember. And then when you create a project name, you might want to think about maybe the department that's going to be focused on it. Maybe it's development, or is it test, or is it production? Again, when we get into the console, I'll show you the naming convention and protocols. A project ID. Now, this ID is something that you're going to definitely want to make a note of. Again, you could provide it, or Google can generate one for you as well. And then a project number. So this is the number that typically the service accounts are going to use to make service calls, API calls, etc., to a specific resource. So let's say it's a VM. And on the test, you're going to definitely want to know what a project is. So I do recommend you spend some time studying. So let's go over, before I cover areas around networking, I'd like to just make sure that you go over to the Google Cloud Platform console. Now, for those folks that haven't logged on to Google Cloud Platform, it's very simple. It's console.cloud.google.com. And if you haven't logged in before, there's usually the availability for you to go get a $300 credit. And so feel free to sign up, get the $300 credit. That credit's good for a year, but I'll be honest, if you're going to do anything in the cloud, any kind of testing, you're going to use that $300 credit up pretty quickly. So, spin resources up, play with it, turn them off, because again, I could burn through $300 in less than a week if I wanted to, especially if you're going to use services around big data, data warehousing, even virtual machines. Again, the larger the resource, the higher the bill. So number of APIs. Also, too, if you upload a lot of files to a bucket, again, that's all money that you're going to pay for. So with that said, so the first thing you want to do is go over to your dashboard. Now, if you haven't logged in before, you're going to be prompted to create a project, and it's going to have a tutorial. I recommend you take the 10 minutes to go through the tutorial. Very simple. So let's go ahead and go over to project info. And again, before I go, I was hesitating here. You can see here that I already created a project. You can see that it's GCP test prep session. Now, project ID, you can see that it is right here. Now, you could see that if you go back here, you'll also, for example, see that there is a project number. This is the number. Now, for the test, I want you to understand. You provide the project name, the project ID. You or Google can provide. The project number the Google Cloud provides. On the test, you will be expected to know the difference. And understand basics about a project and why you want to create a project as well. The main goal is for segmentation of billing, granularity, etc. So let's go over here to project settings. So you could see over here I have the settings over here, and you notice that it's under IAM and administration. So you can see settings. And you can see that the project name is GCP test session. And I could go in and, I could call it whatever I want. I could save it as long as that name is not taken up in that zone. Then you can go ahead and use it. So you can see the project number is right here. This is the number that your developers will likely have a fancy for, as well as the project ID as well. And you go over here, you can go ahead and delete it as well, whatever you so choose. Let's go back to the home. We could go over here, and you could also see, I also like to show this when I teach a class. One of the first things I do is always log into the console, and I like to do a short demo. I'm not going to do that for this course in detail, just briefly to get you thinking, because the way to be successful taking the Google Cloud Platform exams is to practice, no different than any other cloud provider. So if you go over here, you'll see that there's getting started. There's all tutorials here. You go ahead and select whatever you so choose. But also, too, let's say you want to go here and you want to create something, and you go ahead and type in whatever you're looking for. So let's say I just want to go project, and you can see that project is going to bring you to IAM. And then let's say firewall. We're going to go here and take a look at firewall later as well. So you go over here to firewall rules and so on and so on. You could see that it'll default over to the firewall rule as well. And so it'll explain that you're going to want to set up a compute engine, and we'll do that, of course, as well. Okay, so let's go back to the session here. And so when we create a project, just remember that this is a method to segment resources mainly for billing and accounting. So, again, make sure that your developers have a separate project. Make sure the production folks have a separate project, etc. That way you have an idea who's using what and be able to get granular as well. Networks. Now, there's different types of networks. You create a default network. This is the default network set up by Google Cloud. You don't have to worry about an IP range here. Custom, you go ahead and create your own, and then auto, again, is another routine as well. So do log into the console and take a look at that. Now, when you're talking about networks, so again, a network is going to essentially span multiple regions. It's going to be basically global. Now, there's subnets, and we're going to talk about subnets here. Most of us with the networking background, I'm sure, understand what subnetworks are. Not really significant differences in Google compared to other platforms, but there's a few things I do want to touch on. You're going to go ahead and use networks to isolate systems. You're going to use subnets to also get granular. When we talk about networking, so one of the challenges that I personally had was trying to get a grasp on how Google essentially handled IP pools and how Google handled basically provisioning of IP addresses. And there's some differences and some similarities to other providers, but one of the things to understand that on the test, and I want to point this out because, again, I want to make sure you understand external IP. An external IP, this is going to be assigned from a pool. Now, this is considered an ephemeral IP. This is going to be what? An ephemeral IP is, again, something of a term you may not have heard of, or you may have. And so, the question is do you need that IP address permanently or do you not? So again, understand what ephemeral is. Reserved. Now, this is static. This is, a permanent address. Again, know the difference. And one of the things to know as a cloud architect is the way Google bills. Now, interestingly enough, you're going to be asked about billing. I'm going to cover some areas that I think is important to cover in this specific module before we close. So you set up anything static, anything that you're going to keep or have your own. You don't want to change. You don't want it to be dynamic. You're going to pay for that privilege. So don't, again, even if you're not using it, if you have it provisioned, you're paying for that. Do you understand that? So a lot of folks, again, may forget that, and that's an amazingly good way for you to run up your bill and not even use resources. So you're using them, but you're not using them in the sense that you realize that you're using them. So if you provision them, you're using them, especially if you're going to have a reserved instance. Do be aware of that. That is a very common area. Whenever I consult or whenever I work with even a lot of students when I'm doing training, it's very common for people to forget that. Okay. Now, one of the notes over here is the virtual machine doesn't know the external IP address. It is mapped to the internal IP address. Now, Google, the way they do their networking is going to be a little bit more complex than probably what you'd want it to be, but just realize that Google is using a fair amount of networking savvy to be as efficient as possible when it comes to routing and provisioning resources. Now, let's go back to the global, regional, and zonal resources. I had shown you the web page earlier. It's very important that you spend some time understanding what resources are global. So, for example, if you create a disk image, that disk image could be imported from, Council Bluffs, Iowa, or it could be imported from Ashburn, Virginia, or it could be imported from Asia or Europe or whatever, Frankfurt, wherever you're trying to move it to or import the image. So again, that's considered global. Disk snapshots networks are global as well. Remember, we spoke about that. Regional. Now, regional is typically going to be a static external IP address in a lot of cases. A zonal resource is going to be a virtual machine. And if you think about it, a zonal resource is going to be in that zone only. And so if you're running that virtual machine from Council Bluffs, it's in Council Bluffs. That virtual machine isn't going to run in Ashburn, Virginia. Now, can you go ahead and migrate that to another data center? Absolutely. But for right now, that VM is running in Council Bluffs. Just realize that. Now, for the test, you're going to definitely see a question or two on the type of resources and being able to identify what resource is global, regional, and zonal. This one here, I got slammed on. I was, again, surprised to see a few questions on that when I took the exam. Now, again, some of it's fairly common sense. Some of it you had to think about. And again, a lot of that comes down to again, the product and knowing what products are. So let me go ahead and show you this before I forget, because I just trying to make sure you don't miss what I missed. So because I want everybody to pass the first time. So if you go back here, you're going to go over to this zonal coverage, and you can see this says zonal, regional, and multi-regional. Now, on the test, you may see a question or two asking you about what products are multi-regional. So get to know BigQuery, Cloud Data Store, PubSub, and Cloud Storage. You will likely get, again, I can't tell you exactly how it was worded on my exam, but again, it's reasonable to tell you that you want to know what products are considered regional and what is considered multi-regional or zonal. Now, again, spend some time on this. My recommendation to you is to spend at least 15 minutes because for me, at least, I felt I was tested heavily on this. The way I look at it, if you get more than 2 questions on a specific area, you're getting tested heavy on it. So, multi-regional, know these. Now, remember too, there are products, or again, solutions, as I like to say, that are going to be regional. Now, regional means that you could, again, make them redundant between zones. So, Council Bluffs, Ashburn, Virginia. Perfectly reasonable. I have customers using App Engine in many different locations, or every location, and playing around, trying to figure out what's the best result. And also, too, especially like when you're talking about storage as well, very common for customers to have redundancy. One of the things about designing your architecture is to design for failover, for failure. Design for that, because if you don't, we all remember that big Amazon S3 outage. A lot of customers that went down, guess what? They didn't design for failure. They didn't plan for that because the cloud has been very dependable. So why pay extra for something that's always up, right? Again, but to protect your job, protect your business, you have to speak up and let the powers be, let them know that maybe you should reconsider your thought on that. So when we talk about protocols, now Google Cloud supports TCP, UDP, and ICMP. Currently it's IPv4. However, my understanding is that that won't be too much longer. We'll support IPv6. However, I've not found a concise answer to that totally. Will all resources support IPv6? I don't think so, but that's to come. Every virtual machine belongs to a network. Yes, so you're going to, when we go into the demo on virtual machines, you're going to, of course, need to assign a network. Or better yet, if you're just playing around or not sure of how to provision or want to plan, it'll, of course, assign the default. The default network will be used if you don't select one. And then there's also 2 types of networks. There's a legacy, and then there's a subnet. We'll talk more about that. So now on the test, I do want you to know what a subnet network is and what are the benefits. Now, the main benefit of a subnet, oops, I'm sorry, I just skipped over that. Now, the main benefit of a subnet is it's a way to group similar or related resources. So, for example, you want your production VMs on the same subnet. That makes total sense, right? You don't want to have your development and your production intermingled if you don't need to. Can you, route that way? Absolutely, if you so choose. But when you're doing your development and testing, you don't want to, of course, intermingle if you don't need to. Create VPN tunnels. So again, a VPN tunnel, for those that are networking savvy, this is fairly simplistic for you. One of the challenges around VPNs and tunneling is that it's resource intensive, right? However, if you do want to create a VPN, there is, of course, some benefits to that as well, typically around control and performance. You could use subnets in a manner, again, you don't need to know a lot of networking. Google pretty much prompts you to do this or do that if you need to. And again, remember that there's tutorials that literally walk you through the process. Now, typically you would define IP ranges in two manners: is the auto, where basically it'll automatically, assign a range for you, or custom, where you could go ahead and plan it out appropriately. Now, I don't recommend, so for those folks that are not really networking savvy or really totally sure of how you're going to set up your cloud yet, I don't recommend you doing custom until you're pretty solid on what you need to do, because it's not exactly a simple process to go between auto and custom, or at all in a lot of cases. So pay attention to what you're doing there. My recommendation is, if you don't know what you're doing, just leave it as auto. And again, the test is going to sort of prompt you, to know this as well. Routing. Now, routing is, of course, obvious to most of us, but for those folks that don't know, routing is basically how you handle traffic. So how does the traffic flow in and out of your networks or your cloud platform? Now, one of the challenges around routing is that, again, you need to know how the data should flow. And if you don't know, how data should flow, then don't muck with the routing. Let Google handle it. The default routes are going to work pretty efficiently in most cases. But again, if you need to go in and change the routes, then please do that as well. Firewalls. Now, firewalls are dreaded by folks that don't like security or get into security, but for this test, you're going to need to know it. And we'll talk about tags as well. But a tag is essentially a way for you to identify resources to mitigate how resources are defined and grouped, for example, to find them, etc. So firewalls, that's a global resource. So IngressEgress, one of the things that you want to understand is that you could have many firewall rules and assign priority as well. So you can see a priority. Now, the default allows ingress allow only. Now, typically, when you set up a firewall, it's very common for that firewall to deny all and not to allow everything. Now, the Google Cloud for Ingress, again, egress. Now, for those folks, again, let me just spend a second. Ingress is basically going into your cloud resources. Egress is going out of your cloud resources. So do understand that for the test, because one of the things you're going to see is these two words, ingress and egress, on the test. Probably, I don't know, I swear I saw it 6 times at least. So do understand when you're sending something in and you're sending something out, understand the difference, and understand that the firewall is going to handle that differently. So by default, it's ICMP, SSH, and RDP. Those are the 3 protocols you're going to want to understand. Billing. Now, billing for traffic. Now, when you're leaving the cloud and going to the internet, that's called egress according to Google Cloud. Now, you're going to be charged for that. You will be charged from going to one region to another. Do you understand that the rates are different? And yes, for the test, you do need to know how you're going to be billed. Now, you're not billed for traffic going into the Google Cloud. So, if you're sending in, now there's some exceptions, but overall, that's what we want you to know. Virtual machine to virtual machine traffic in a single zone, and traffic to GCP services. There are limits. So, for example, if you're going to use BigQuery, Bigtable, you need to understand the limits of those products, solutions, services, whatever you want to call it. So, how are we doing on time? Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit over than I wanted to, but again, I like to talk, and that's just me. Now, I do want to make sure you go through some test questions here. This is coming up here right about now. I'm just going to finish this slide. Now, when you're connecting with the Google Cloud, one of the recommendations you may want to do is use a bastion host. Now, a bastion host is going to be something that you're going to use, especially if you have multiple connections and you need to control them to be efficient. Again, go spend some time understanding what a bastion host is. If you look at the diagram here, this is the green computer here. This is you going from your company, your home, whatever, to the Google Cloud. And a bastion is essentially using this as sort of almost like a jump station is another term. At least in the Unix world, we would call it a jump station, where you'd log in to one server so that you could log into the other servers. So that's a bastion host. And yes, you're going to see that on the test. That surprised me as well. Okay, so let's talk about some questions. Let's get you all ready to start thinking about how Google wants you to think to prepare for the test. Okay, first question. There's 3 ports allowed by default through the GCP firewall. What are the 3? Now, I highlighted them in red for the test. Okay, you need to know this: SSH, ICMP, RDP. So SSH, right? We know what that is, right? Secure socket. ICMP. This is going to be your ping. That's going to be your protocol that you're going to send to use your services, and some other services as well, like routing, queries, etc. RDP, that's Remote Desktop Protocol. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that as well. Now, I did put on, again, on the test, you're gonna see. Now, I did this on purpose because I wanted to make sure that you take a second to think before you answer. Now, DHCP, that probably isn't going to be a good answer, so let's skip over that. But ping is what? ICMP, right? So you want to make sure you choose on the test the better or the best solution, or answer, I should say. And the reason is because one of the things I had noticed is on the test, it seemed to have some very similar answers. And if you only select one, right, and you have 2 similar, you got to select the best answer. So I want you all to take your time to make sure that you know these bulletproof. Projects. So what are the characteristics of a project? Now, again, a project has 3 characteristics when you set it up. The first is you're going to need to know a project name. You're going to provide the project name. Now, again, like I said, my recommendation is to name it something that you could identify it easily. This is used for billing. Again, you could set up multiple projects: development, test, human resources, legal, production, whatever you so choose. Project ID. Now, this is, again, something that you could provide, or Google can provide for you automatically, as I like to say. That's your call. Project number. This is the number that GCP is going to affiliate with the resources. This is not something you can change. This is what Google is going to name it. And the project number is something that typically the service accounts are going to also want to know as well. Okay, question 3. So one of the things about this test is you're going to get some scenario questions and case studies as well. Now, if you watched my previous video on the overall content and how to prep for it, you'll know that I had warned you about the case study, and that I recommend that you read the case studies that they have listed on the Google Cloud Platform Data Architect or the Cloud Architect exams. So they both have them, so take a look at them for whatever test you take. Now, you'll get scenarios or case study questions that are going to be at least, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 sentences long in some cases, so they could be a little lengthy. My recommendation to you is take your time to read the question. Some of them, in my opinion, I'm sort of an older fart. I've been around, in IT for about 20 years, so I noticed that some of the writing may not have, in my opinion, been very specific or grammarly, appropriate based on what I learned. And I'm not saying that that's not, good or bad or whatever. Just don't take it that way. But read the question and really understand what they're trying to ask. Because it'll be very easy for you to get tricked up on these. Not only will you read a lengthy question that's going to waste your time if you don't understand it, you'll also likely select the wrong answer because you don't understand it. So, hope that made sense. So this question here, if you read it, basically what they're trying to ask is, you need a static solution. It's not dynamic. You need to again, select a proper IP address that the customer can use. And in this case, the external will be the best answer. Number 4, you're setting up a firewall, right? And this firewall needs to, of course, have ports open. They're open by default. Now, what are those? We just spoke about them just a minute ago. So those are fresh in your mind, right? Number 5, you want to connect to GCP. You have a ton of SSH connections you need to connect. You know that connecting individual sessions isn't going to scale well. Plus, it's going to give you a nightmare to manage. What is a good way to have connections like that set up? The best answer, again, is a Bastion host. Number 6, there's different ways to segment, different ways to provision network resources. What would be the best way to do that? What are the 2 ways actually that you could do that? Auto and custom. Another thing I noticed on the test is you're going to have answers that are going to be very similar. They both sound reasonable. And if you don't know the content, it's more than possible you're going to select the one that sounds better to you, not what Google wants you to know. So again, that's question 6. Now, that's about all I had for this review. Do go to my next revision of virtual networks. I'm going to cover mainly around a deeper dive on load balancing and networking and CIDR and other areas as well that you want to know for the test. Then also too, once you do the network and go on to resource management, data services, and then also to the products I'm going to cover, because for this test you do need to specify products as an architect and you need to know the difference. So I'm going to cover those as well. Some of those can be very confusing, like big table, big query. How do you, distinguish between the two, for example? They sound the same, right? But how do you know the difference, So those are some things we want to do. Then we'll talk briefly about security as well in containers also. So I want to thank you again for joining this session. I wish you all luck on the exam. Let me know how you do. Any other feedback, please let me know. And do look out for the additional prep sessions that I'll be posting here very shortly. Thank you again. Have a good day.